What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 5 of the Logic Bomb podcast. This is the post-6 Invitational episode. All three of us were actually at the 6 Invitational. We all have kind of different perspectives of it. Zronik actually took part in the production, so it's going to be cool to hear from him. We're all a little bit jet lagged. Not me so much. I was in the same time zone. I didn't have to go through quite as much of a time zone shift as the other two here, but I'm still kind of worn out. It's a busy weekend, and I'm getting back into the grind of things here. But I think that maybe the best way to word how most Siege fans are feeling right now is like Siege sensory overload. There was so much information dropped on us as far as changes, new operators, new season, roadmaps, reworks, all that stuff. So I think what we're going to do in this episode is we're going to obviously talk about all that stuff, but we're just going to kind of talk about what comes to mind as far as what we remember from the Year 5 reveal, all that stuff. We'll just basically talk about what our thoughts are on it. Anything that we missed that we hear from you guys, we'll be sure we catch up on the next episode. But this is gonna be fun just for us to kind of talk about all the changes and stuff and pick each other's brains on what the overall experience was from the Invitational. But before we do that, we actually have kind of some exclusive information for you guys here. Ubisoft reached out to us about a week ago and told us that there were going to be some changes to the way that explosions work in the game. And you may have noticed that that's in the patch notes right now, which, by the way, the patch notes for Operation Void Edge will be linked in the description. So they reached out to us, explained that the explosions were going to be changing, and we've been able to kind of ask some questions and process that information. We were able to get our hands on some of the graphics they're going to be releasing to explain what's different with explosions now. So what we're going to do first of all here is present that to you guys and explain and try and break it down to give everybody a good understanding of exactly what is changing with explosions, so you'll know what to expect in game. Do you think that's a fair way of wording that, guys?
Yeah, that is. Yeah. So we're going to go over what those changes are, but I think I'm just going to go through some bullet points I've made as to how explosions work at the moment. Should I go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Cool? Yeah. All right. So I'm going to try and keep it brief. I've made some bullet points here, just a nutshell of how explosions work in the game at the moment. So just bear with us as I work through these. So, basically, in Rainbow Six Siege, there are multiple different explosion shapes when you think about the radius of an explosion. So, for example, a frag grenade, it has a circular radial shape emitting from the epicenter of where the frag grenade goes off. But a claymore, as you'd expect, is more of a rectangular shape when that goes off. Now, when the explosion occurs, and by the way, you're going to see me referring to notes, so do forgive me here. But when the explosion occurs, the explosion shape, so that area where it is effective is queried with a physics engine, which then returns a list of operators and objects that fall into that blast radius. Now, once that list of objects and operators has been determined, everything in the blast radius, the physics engine executes raycasts from the center of the explosion. And the way to think of those raycasts simply is just like lines coming out from where the frag grenade went off. Now, the raycasts connect with query points on the operators and objects, which determine whether or not the object or the operator is affected by the explosive blast. The data collected by those raycasts determines the outcome of the explosion and therefore the resultant damage that is inflicted upon you. However, all the objects in Siege contain some metadata, and that defines what the object is and how it interacts with the game. For example, certain objects within the maps can block explosions. They contain the metadata which tells the physics engine that. And good examples of that would be, so a deployable shield. If you're behind a deployable shield, you know that that's going to eat the damage, that the raycast is going to hit the deployable shield rather than hit you. Now, if the raycast hits an object with that metadata, it blocks the explosive damage before it reaches you. We've covered that. And I suppose the final thing to say is there is a damage drop-off curve with explosions. So that means that the closer you are usually to the epicenter of an explosion, the more damage you're going to take because it drops down. So if you're sitting on a grenade, it's going to be rather painful than if you're a few meters away from it. So I think that's sort of a nutshell explanation of how explosions work in there at the moment.
Yeah, and if you take the raycast when they're flying out, or the shrapnel, or the fragments, or whatever makes it easier to wrap your head around, it's unless there's a player in the line, basically that raycast has to hit a player for it to have any visual effect, right? So let's say you're on the other side of a soft wall and an explosion happens and you take damage. Before, there might not be any damage to the wall. Now there will always be a hole in the wall showing that this is why and this is where you took damage from. If there's no player there and there is no interception of that raycast line or that shrapnel line, then nothing will have changed.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. It's to give you a better feedback of why and where you took damage
That
from.
was messing with me hardcore, man, because I was trying to test this in the custom games on the live build versus the test server. I was like, "There's no difference, nothing," And then I finally went and actually took damage with my own nitro cell, and then I saw the holes, and I think that's going to throw some people off, but it makes sense why they did it that way, so that if you do take damage, you can see, oh, okay, that's where the raycast / shrapnel came from that did damage to me. I think the way that I kind of summarize it to simplify it a little bit, maybe this is how I'm wrapping my head around this. In the way it used to be with explosions in Rainbow Six Siege is that there were two radiuses. One where the explosion did destruction radius, one where the explosion did damage to people. So the radius where an explosion would do damage to a person was larger than the destruction radius. And what that meant was that if a person is inside of the radius where they would normally receive damage, but behind a destructible wall that's outside of the destruction radius, then they would not take damage. That destructible wall would stop the raycast or shrapnel, and it would prevent that person from receiving damage. And now with this explosive change, that is not the case. If they are within the radius where they are supposed to receive damage from an explosion, and they are behind a destructible wall, they will still take damage, albeit less. It does say in there, I believe, that the destructible wall does lessen the amount of damage it would take compared to just receiving that explosion in the wide open. But yeah, that's really how I'm wrapping my head around it. And as you're looking on the screen here, we're showing a couple of different visuals. Let me just explain these real quick before we go into more of this. So on the screen right now, you're going to see a visual for the way that the explosions used to work. It's showing you two rings there. That inner ring is the destruction ring. The outer ring is the damage ring, okay? And the next picture here, you're going to see the way it's going to work now. So what you're seeing is that you're seeing those raycasts go out from the explosion ring, go through a soft wall or barricade, and still do damage to the person on the other side. And as we continue talking here, I'll be showing you in-game clips that show how it looks in-game between the live build and the test server. So hopefully that makes sense to you.
The whole thing was shrapnel to start with, because that word was used, shrapnel. I thought they were gonna change grenades to actually like throw, 1,000 little metal pieces everywhere. So I thought if you threw a grenade into the middle of the room, we just start seeing destruction everywhere in that room. I was a little bit worried if that was the case. I mean, I love that in some games. In Escape from Tarkov, it's great, but in Siege, I don't want one grenade to pepper the whole room, right? So it's nice that it's only to give you an indication of what happened.
That's it.
It shouldn't drastically change anything. I tried all my normal good grenade spots, and they still work just as fine. Nothing massive changed with this. It's just a quality of life improvement, pretty much.
Better player feedback, isn't it? Like you said from the outset. Though saying that, Flanked, you had an example where you actually experienced slightly different damage.
Yeah, I think that I can show it on the screen right now. I have it clipped. In this clip, you're going to see what I believe to be a nitro cell kill with pulse that I would not have gotten before this change. You'll see in the kill cam there, it's kind of weird because the way her gun falls, it kind of leans up against the holes. But if you look closely there in the kill cam, you'll see the holes where those shrapnel pieces or raycast came through and did damage to her. And I believe my nitro cell would not have killed her if this change wouldn't have been implemented. I didn't go in and actually test this in the live build, so I could be wrong there. But based upon the way that that kill cam looks, it does look to me like this was a real effect of it. And I think, in talking with them, we were able to ask some questions to the developer behind this. And one of the things that they did this for is because of how explosions have worked inside versus outside. So outside, a nitro cell is much stronger than inside, just because you're going to absorb the full realization of its blast radius. Inside, there's a chance that it could, some of that blast radius could be absorbed by objects inside of the building, whether that be a table, whether that be a destructible wall, whether that be a reinforced wall or whatever. So this is a way for them to make it closer to how explosions perform inside versus outside.
I think that's a good summary. Yeah.
All right. Anything else that you guys wanted to add on the explosions? I think maybe it is a buff to explosions, but it's not night and day. Like you were saying, Zeronic. I don't think that players are really going out. They're not going to like log in tomorrow and be like, oh my God, this is crazy.
I mean, so this was live while people were testing the year 5 content at SI. And I asked around if anyone noticed anything different, and not a single person mentioned anything. And then we went to one of the Ubi people and like made sure, is it actually in? And they went, yep. I'm like, okay. I mean, then that's a good thing, because it basically, you don't need to do anything different at all, right? You don't need to worry about changing the way you use things. It'll just, next time you take 25 damage, there'll be a hole in a wall that will kind of indicate exactly where this thing happened from. If the grenade was below you, next to you, whatever it might be. So I think that's the gist of it, and what they're trying to achieve is that you're going to have less times where you're sitting there wondering what actually happened here.
I think it'll be good overall. I really do. I'm happy with it. In the testing that I did, it's begun to make sense for me, and I'm sure that once other people do, they'll kind of understand it as well. Our understanding is that the dev blog explaining this in detail is going to be coming out when we release this, basically, or close to that. So we'll be sure to try to link that down in the description as well. If you want to go look at the dev blog and the detailed breakdown of this, it'll be linked down in the description of the YouTube video at least. And you can go do that over there. And, thanks to everybody over Ubisoft for, letting us, send some questions your way and try to break this down. It's been good.
What I'm liking right now is picturing you testing it and pulling your hair out.
I was. You guys were in the DMs. I'm literally like, are you sure this is in right now? I'm making a fool of myself. Yeah. All right. So moving on from explosions. We have a little bit of content to go over, and we had a little thing called the 6 Invitational that we all attended. So, let's get
a small little event.
What's that?
Tiny little event.
Yeah, tiny little event.
Well, I think a really good segue, for that quickly, is our first episode started out with being a wish list.
Yep.
There was a few things that we'd like to see in year 5. Everyone knows that the only thing Plank wanted to see was a Legion map. So you're at least happy now.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease, baby. Squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Just to a quick summary on some of those changes, because it wasn't just Legion, right? Twitch only does 1 damage with a drone now and has it on a recharge timer. Yep. So you're going to see people, well, I mean, honestly, I don't know if you're going to see people not sapping with a Twitch drone, but at least it's not going to be that cumbersome when you're in prep phase and someone wants to waste 3 charges on you before they die.
Yeah.
To get people more focused on actually taking care of utility with Twitch. Frost got the Hollow, right?
Yeah.
And Castle has the Super Shotgun, which is insane. But from a competitive point of view, that is so good, because now you can run deployable cam on Castle and not worry about needing impact nades for rotates and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's massive. It allows you to bring other operators. It lessens the need of other shotguns that you can have or that you need now, because you could run super shoddy on Mossy and on Castle, for example, and you don't need any more shotguns now on defense. So there's quite a few changes. All the grenade operators now, right? We got
Nook,
Mav, Ying,
Maverick,
Nook,
Ying,
yeah.
yep. Dokkaebi lost them.
Yep. And that seemed like a really big thing for me. I thought that was going to be a little bit of a bad idea, but if you look at like the explosive sync operators on defense, like Meister, Castle, Goyo, all the deployable shields, you kind of need more nades in a normal lineup because you're being pushed towards having Ash Sophia or at least Sophia Buck as the minimum, just to be able to get anything done. So I think it's pretty good that they loosened up on that a bit.
Iana has them too. Iana, the new attacker has grenades too.
That's true.
Another thing that I'll mention as far as those grenades, because I think people are kind of losing their minds about that right now, is they mentioned, we don't know when it's coming, but at some point attackers are going to have a hard breach gadget available to them. So who's to say that some of those operators that are getting frags right now won't have that available, and then it'll be a really tough choice. So yes, right now it does seem like there's a lot of grenades available, but if you're having to choose between a grenade or a hard breach, you might be dropping those grenades, even as valuable as grenades are right now. So keep that in mind. We don't really know the full picture yet, I would say.
Do you think we're going to be seeing Wamai and Jaeger with all these grenades being thrown around?
It's a good point.
Do you think that's a consideration?
Yeah, that could be.
I mean, it's actually it's a pretty good way of indirect nerfing Jaeger.
Yeah.
Right? Because Jaeger's still up there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a few operators that are just terrifying to try and nerf. Jaeger and Rook, for example, like the metrics you have to pull around with to actually nerf them, you can't really remove one of his saps, right? That then they become too weak. You can't really take an ADS away from him either. That seems a little too strong.
I've got an idea.
All right.
Jaeger, not for competitive play necessarily, but if you went and just switched that way, if he had an MPX, do you think that he would be getting that pick rate?
I'd rather just see him make him a 2-speed.
I mean,
but no, I think you're right. There's a lot of people. I don't know. I've always said don't punish us for bringing necessary utility, and I've always considered Jaeger to be necessary utility. So allow us to play a fun operator with that necessary utility. But yeah, now that he has an alternate, I mean, I can't really use that excuse anymore.
Well, it's a little bit. He still falls under that M4 and play style thing that I explained last time, that we're like, people pick him because of the gun, they pick him because of the play style, because especially in ranked and casual play, it's not a like strategical mastermind thing to put down some ADSs in the prep phase, right? And most of them, let's be fair, you yeet your 3 ADSs and then you kind of go on your merry way and see what you can mess up in the other end of the map. That's what mostly happens. And you'd probably never really be able to fix that by taking things away. You just hit some sort of hard wall of where it becomes not worth it. But I don't know if things should be nerfed to the level of not viable if they're not really an issue. Right? Like, it's not like Jaeger's destroying the health of a good round or anything.
No.
I think what Jaeger does, though, is he just limits the diversity of selection. Because if you look... Yeah, Legion, I think Legion was way more of an annoying operator to come up against than Jaeger. But if you go through all of the Year 4 designer notes, Jaeger and Legion every season, I mean, you could argue, really, Jaeger was much worse. It's just he's not, when it comes to the frustration survey, I don't think Jaeger features in the same way that Legion does. Legion, I'm sure, features very high every season.
If a Jaeger kills you, he killed you in a gunfight, and you probably had a chance to fight back unless he came from behind you. A Legion, you can feel robbed in some of those interactions, whether that be with a Gumine or whatever. And I think that explains the whole frustration thing to me between those two operators.
I actually think one of the big things that makes Legion so frustrating isn't necessarily the damage or any of that. I think it's the fact that you have a choice of pulling the goo mine out, and every single time you do, and you get shot, you're sitting there screaming at the PC, right? Why Legion? Why this? Why that? Whereas if it was Capcan and you took damage and then got in the gunfight, that doesn't feel as bad. Yep. But having to stop and choose to pull out that goo mine and then getting shot, it's the worst, right?
Which is why I love this nerf
because
so much.
Because then it comes back to, then you start questioning, should I have pulled it out? Should I have carried on? It starts bringing in all of that kind of thought. So I think that's then worth asking you then, Flanked, are you happy?
I am.
With
I am.
The level you are?
It's still something that I would keep an eye on because I think we could look down the road and say, okay, 7 or 8 or however many he can earn, it's just too much. It's too much. But for right now, I think this is where I would have ended up. Now, here's the big thing for me, okay? When you now hit a goo mine, you have a realistic choice. You can sit and hold your angle for a second and not take any damage and then pull it out. Or you can sit and let it go for maybe 1 tick, okay? So think about before. You would take the 10 initial damage, correct? And then 4 damage on the first tick. So by the time you hit that first tick, you would lose 14 health. Now you can get all the way to that point and only lose 6 health because they did up the damage from 4 to 6 alongside with that. That's less than half. And in my opinion, that's a big damage. You're also not going to run in these situations where it's the last 20 seconds of a round, you have 5 health, you're trying to get in and plant because you know the last defender alive is on the other side of the map, and you run in, you hit a goo mine, you die, and the goo mine who's been dead since the first minute of the round clutched the round for them. Those situations aren't going to exist anymore. But you still do hold on to a lot of the good things of Legion, like, for example, him being a good shield counter. Like, for example, him being a good counter to the Ash Rush. I still think that he's really strong in all those elements and does a good job in all of that, but they have nerfed him in a way that, as well as the indicators, where he's not so easy mode, in my opinion.
I like that they took the indicators away, although it was always fun to try and wallbang based off that.
Yeah.
But you still get the fuzzy vision, which in my opinion is one of the worst things.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the strongest things is that if you leave it in, you're permanently echo droned. It can't kill people that are downed anymore either. So if you're downed and you crawl into a goo mine, you won't die. That's pretty big as well.
If one of your teammates goes down in the enemy site, just tell them, dude, you gotta act like a sweeper and just get all those things.
Yeah.
Some people,
because it still pops, it just doesn't kill you.
Some people have made the point that they don't like that the frost trap goo mine combo doesn't exist anymore, and some people are unhappy about that. What do you guys think there?
I don't think it matters.
How often do you ever see that, really? I mean, you do from time to time, but
every
it's
Legion. Every Legion that ever plays with a frost. Every time.
Yeah, I wonder
it's an extra free kill.
I wonder if is it one or the other, or is it both? Because I don't know. I kind of agree with you guys. It's not that big of a deal, but I do understand where people are coming from. It was kind of a cool interaction for 2 players to synergize like that, but I'm willing to give that up for this trade for sure.
I mean, every Frost player is going to be happy, right? Because now no one's stealing the kills.
That's actually true. That's a good point.
On the other hand, it's such a waste. You have a Frost Trap there, which should be a pretty damn guaranteed kill anyway, right? Then you also put a goo mine there that could have gone on stairs instead, or stopped the rush, or been on a default plant spot, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think it's like it automatically makes players a little bit better because now they have to put them. Well, they don't have to, but they should put them somewhere else. And honestly, downing someone in a Frost Trap, that should be enough of an advantage, right?
But
there.
now Frost has that beautiful vortex sight to finish off those kills. So I thought it was interesting.
Have you seen it?
Yeah.
Have you seen that on the go?
Yeah,
it looks weird.
I think people are so used to having that on the Roni and the FMG9, which are both like high fire rate weapons, that people are telling me that it feels so weird to have that slow rate of fire from the C9 with that sight, that it feels like the gun should be firing way faster. I can see where they're coming from.
It looked like someone put a truck on top of a pool cue. that sight is so disproportionately large. It looks ridiculous.
It does.
But I mean, people wanted a holo sight on it for a while. Now they got one.
You mentioned Twitch and the Twitch drone nerf. What's going under the radar a little bit now is they nerfed her first 6-shot recoil, and it's significant. Mm-hmm. Like that gun jumps on you now. Yeah.
Still not buck.
What's that?
It's still
not buck, and it's still very usable. I was using it yesterday. I have actually spent a little bit of time in the test server since I've gotten back. It's still very, very, very usable, but it's a nerf for sure.
Yep.
So
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah. First 6 shots of the F2's recoil are much more significant than it used to be.
Was that in the patch notes? Because
yes.
Okay, cool. Okay. Because before we went live, Zoronic was talking about loads of these sort of secret changes that didn't make it in there. So we need to work out what all of those are.
Yeah, there's a good bit. This is a big patch. Let's talk about some of the quality of life changes. Your drone now spawns where you want it to. You can stay on your drone after the preparation phase. And let me maybe just explain that a little bit. For anybody who's on console and hasn't had a chance to play the test server, here's how it works. You have 3 different settings now in the menu for your drone: automatic, semi-automatic, and I don't know what it's called,
manual.
But legacy. The way it works right now, and it's always worked, that's one option. But if you're on automatic, okay,
automatic is standard.
Is it standard? Is that how it's worded? Okay,
yeah.
So
no. It's called automatic, semi-automatic, and manual. Okay. Manual is the new fancy.
Okay. So automatic is the way that it used to be, correct? So that at the end of the prep phase, you automatically go from your drone to your player model. Semi-automatic is what I've been using, and what that means is that if your drone is both alive and you're spectating it, you will stay on that drone after the prep phase ends, and then you have to manually click off of that drone in order to go to your player model and spawn. And then the standard what is it? Manual. Manual is that no matter what, you have to switch to your player model at the beginning of the prep phase. So hopefully I didn't confuse everybody more there. But I've been using the semi-automatic, and there's 2 ways of getting off your drone. Hit the button to go off your drone, or switch to somebody else's drone. If you're spectating somebody else's drone, you'll automatically go to your drone. If your drone gets shot in the prep phase, then it will automatically go to your player model when you spawn. So it's been pretty cool.
I love that change. The amount of time people, with 5 seconds to spawn, says, check my drone quick. Now I run on manual. I jump over, I check their drone, and I can stay on it. I can call for them on their drone right out of spawn. Yeah. It's such a good change.
People have been calling for a while, actually. For a good while, that change. So it's
I
really
remember people wanting this before we got 2 drones.
There was one other change we just brushed over, which is to choose where your drone spawns at the beginning of the prep phase as well. So when you select an area to spawn as an attacker, you pick your operator, you select, say on bank, you're going to spawn alley. That is where your drone will spawn when the prep phase begins as well. So that's the other change that's come in as well.
Huge.
So
the only thing that scares me. Yeah, but
I was thinking on. Mm-hmm.
You used to have this thing where you might have one drone spawn on a roof or
coastline.
So from competitive point of view, sometimes you would you'd have a rule where you say, okay, the first guy who has a drone, the roof drone spawn or the whatever drone spawn, has to go to this specific spot because it was the safest, fastest way of getting there. I don't know if there's any way now of forcing those spawns with the drone, or if all drone spawns have been kind of locked towards your initial spawn position. That's my only worry, and I haven't gotten to see or test enough of it yet. But I'd be a little bit sad if you can't do that anymore. Yeah. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it crossed my mind too that, but the coastline roof spawn is the perfect example. How do you get that? And is there a way that everyone gets that? If you just don't, do you know what I mean? That's something I could do with a bit of clarity.
Another quality of life change: the barricade debris. That is, honestly, when we did our year 5 wish list, one of my biggest regrets when I listened back to that episode was that I didn't mention that. It's been on the community awareness blog that they've been running for a while this was coming this year, but wow, what a relief! And again, for anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, when you hit a barricade, now that debris is going to fall 100% of the time instead of sometimes blocking your vision and then, just leading to really frustrating moments in the game.
That's massive. That is one of the most frustrating things I find in the game because the debris is client side. I don't believe that that's changed, but what they've done is they've changed the physics of it so that it falls away because they've made the pieces smaller. But because it is client side, where if a big hunk of debris lays there, that doesn't mean that someone isn't looking you right in the eyeballs from the other side and is about to blow your brains out. So yeah, that is, and I don't know one person that hasn't run into that as well. No matter where, like whether you're a diamond or bronze, you've run into that issue.
Yeah, it seems to be a pretty good fix because you're correct. It's still client side, which I guess goes a little bit to when people just scream for do this, do that in terms of fixes. It's not always the way to do it, right? If they went to do it server side, it would have an impact on other things because there's a finite amount of data that can be sent forth and back. There's already a lot of things that have to be lined up. You got all your hit-rich data, whatever you want to call that, damage, bullets, everything. You got some destruction that has to be the same. Well, if you make a punch hole, it has to be the same for everyone, right? So if you add barricades into server side as well, something else has got to give at some point.
You think of those, when I ran through those bullet points of those how explosions work, just generally, that all happens in a millisecond. All of that data is being communicated in a millisecond. And so that's just a great example of what you're saying. So yeah, there's more than one way to skin a cat, right? So they seems as though they've come up with a really good solution. And the other change there as well is, how the debris would collect at the bottom, which would obscure your vision? That's gone as well. So it's much cleaner overall.
It's awesome. And let me send this on a kind of a curve right now because this is just making me think of something. It has to do with all this, but let me see what you guys think about this. So you think about the mouse change, you think about the barricade debris change. They revealed some things we don't know when they're coming, but they are massive changes. You've got the motion sensor that, correct me if I'm wrong, defenders are going to get as a unique
proximity, not motion.
Proximity sensor. You've got the hard breach gadget that attackers are going to get. You've got the ping 2.0. You've got the Tachanka rework, for God's sakes. All that stuff. Okay. And then alongside that, they also announced that halfway through year 5, they're going to go down to a 1 operator per season release, and then continue with that through year 6. In year 5, we will not be getting any new maps. We'll be getting only reworks. Let me ask you guys, because I think that my own opinion is that the foundation of this game and what keeps it interesting is the new operators, the new maps. But do the changes like the barricade debris changes, the drone changes, the ping system, does that actually have a bigger effect on the day-to-day life and gameplay of this game than a new operator?
I would say, do you know what? I would say you might be right, and I'll tell you why. Because firstly, obviously, I like having 2 new operators every season, but I've thought a lot about this after that announcement and after the briefings that we've been to. And I would say every season, I mean, there's some seasons where I don't use any of the operators. You can't say that every season those 2 new operators come out and they fit straight into your play style and get equal play time of every other operator in the game. I can tell you that I don't touch Kali. Now, I know some people enjoy the sniper aspect and stuff of it, but there is seasons that come where I don't touch those operators at all. And I think the majority of the player base, if they were honest with themselves, that there are operators that come and go and they just never touch. For example, Clash. We saw a bit of Clash in the Invitationals, right, being used. But I'd never play Clash, really. I never touch her. That being said, I do think that this might add a little bit of pressure to the dev team to make sure that that one operator that comes along is genuinely fun and useful to play, because they don't have that sort of 50-50. Okay, you've got Wamai and Kali. Okay, Wamai is more useful. Or you've got Goyo and Amaru. Do you know what I mean? So I think there might be that added pressure to the dev team. But I think there's some truth in saying, actually, day to day when you're playing the game, something like the barricade change is actually going to be much more impactful, because everyone experiences that.
It's a lot bigger than that as well, right? Because every game you play, every single match will be impacted by every core change or health change to the game. Every single match, no matter what operator you use. What if you're a new player coming in? All of those things will matter right off the bat. New operators, I mean, they're nice to have. They do add something. And I think one of the reasons that Siege is so good is because we keep getting this almost forced meta change with map reworks, new operators, but they're very far and few between when they actually force change a meta. Most operators just make you have to remember one extra thing and be a little wary of one thing that might be able to happen. Like with Oryx, for example, with his jumping up hatches. Well, now on maps that have 3 stairs, you can't just cover those 3 stairs. You need to make sure that there's a little bit of cover on some of the hatches. Some hatches have to be covered, others can kind of be ignored. But like the ping system, that's a buff to every single operator, for example.
Yeah.
The ping 2.0, right? Yep. The Heartbreach gadget coming in for attackers. The fact that now, let's say you're playing a map where you don't necessarily want Heartbreaches, but you do want an option to make a hole in a certain wall, to remove a mirror, to open a hatch, whatever that might be. That buffs every other operator that isn't a Heartbreacher then, because now you can bring one different extra operator to your lineup for those strats, which makes operators that you otherwise didn't get to play playable. So you bring some of the older stuff back in again.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge meta shift. I mean,
yeah, it's massive. Yeah. And I mean, I don't care if we get one operator every 3 months, or if we get one every half year, if we get 5. It's the quality of the operators that's important. If they want to hit 100, I'm not against that, but there's gonna have to be some pretty crazy stuff in there, because you just can't put in too many, like there's got to be something crazy if you're adding another almost 50 operators. Yep. There's only so many options of sane, normal things you can make them do. So, and they got to be different, right? They can be version 2.0. They can be. I wouldn't even mind if we get a little bit of power creep at some point. I don't think we have that yet. But the more gadgets, the more secondaries they add with reused weapons, stuff like that, it becomes much easier to balance things out. So we don't get these crazy operators that become necessary. Like Hibana, for example, her impact or Mira, when they came out, it's hard to imagine Siege without them. Mm-hmm. Whereas most of the other operators, while they're nice, their job can be done by someone else.
Yeah, they actually said during the reveal, they not only revealed we're going to get the proximity sensor for defenders, and at some stage this hard breach for attackers, secondary gadget, but they also said, I think the words were many more to come. It wasn't the feeling when they announced those secondary gadgets, to me, was that they are going to be a new thing in the game, where we are going to be able to determine the complexity of the level we play at, and with regards to our operator selection through those secondary gadgets. Because it wasn't like, oh guys, we've got 2 new gadgets coming at some stage. It was, we've got these 2 gadgets and there's many more to come, which tells me that there's obviously a lot going on in the background with regards to that. And it does make you think that they're perhaps moving away from it being all about operator selection.
I think we all 3 got different briefs, didn't we? Besides the year 5 reveal, I think we all 3 probably got different It revealed to us differently. Because it was revealed to me actually by I was in a presentation with a bunch of people, a bunch of journalists and stuff, and Epi is actually the one who presented it. And the wording that he used, which really like hit home with me, is that they are focusing on releasing and improving content that affects every player in the game. Okay, and I think what he went on to say and explain is that, like, okay, releasing 2 new operators this season, like you said, Pete, maybe you play one of those, maybe you don't play either. I mean, you think about Phantom Sight, Nook and Warden. There's some people who enjoy those operators, but I would say the majority of people have very little time played on either one of those operators. So instead of that, if they're focusing on some new, secondary gadgets that you can use alongside an operator that you're already comfortable with, but still change the game and affect it that way, that is content that the majority of the players are going to use and that they're going to get enjoyment out of. So it does actually make sense for them to focus on that.
The idea of 2 operators per season as well was the Rainbow Six dev team has evolved a lot since this game came out, and we now actually have a different management team running it, as Xavier Marquis and Alex Remy have moved on. We have, like, Leroy Avanasov is running the show, as far as I understand. But if you consider Rainbow Six Siege came out with the 2 operator per season thing, and we've all got used to that concept, but at that time they didn't know that this was going to be such a big live service.
Right.
Rainbow Six Siege really picked up towards the end of year 1, and then moving into year 2 was where it really began to take off. And so this team that's now running the game have almost been limited. There's sort of like this limitation placed on them that the status quo is 2 operators per season. And if they want to move it in a slightly different direction and provide more content, for example, we've been told that they're looking to provide more content and this bi-weekly continuous engagement of content. So I think we're just going to get the content in different ways rather than it being 2 operators per season. That's how I understood it. Expect a lot more reworks and changes to the stuff that's already in there that's going to keep you engaged with the game.
The thing people got to remember as well, that it's not like so just because we get 1 operator doesn't mean that the hours that would otherwise have gone into making another operator don't all of a sudden disappear. It's not like everyone go on vacation because it's 1 operator, right? Like, that amount of time is spent on something different, whether it's the replay system, ping 2.0, map vetoes. All of that will have a much bigger impact on your everyday Siege life. And also, I guess, like, for some of us that have played for years now, it's kind of nice having a little bit of, instead of an Operation Health, which was there to help change the back end and make things easier to work on, and something that was a lot harder to notice as a player. I think people are giving it more credit, or at least the wrong credit, on Operation Health. It's like they assumed that the whole game just magically got fixed there, and not that it was a long-term plan to make it easier in the future to change things and operate on that. But now, like 4 years, 5 years in, now we're starting to get some of the things that would have been nice to have in the start. And instead of them just kind of brushing it off and saying, well, guess we just continue the way we're doing, all that stuff is getting added and fixed. Like, adding a replay system 5 years into a game. Are you kidding me? Like, I don't think I can think of much or many other games that would even try to do that at that point.
I never thought
it's gotta be. No, me neither. Especially because I remember talk about it a long time ago, and reasons that it would be difficult. If you look at something like CS, where you need player position, you need an XYZ cast of the character, where they're looking, what the pitch and yawn is of the character, and then you need the physics to be running, but it's always the same map. So you just plot in 5 people on each side, and you just run numbers, right? Like the geo coordinates of where they are, together with their ZY or XYZ axis for their play model. But in Siege, you need every bullet hole. Every bullet hole.
Yeah.
Because there's no way that you can sit there and watch a replay and then little Jeff comes around the corner and he gets shot through the wall, and now everyone's concerned that this other player is definitely cheating.
Yeah.
But he was actually just sitting looking through a bullet hole, right? And just the sheer data difference in that compared to most other games when you do a replay system, I imagine a clear text file is probably a couple of gigs at that point, right? Just in clear text to do that. And they got to scale that down so you can have, I don't know how many replays on your system, and that it doesn't like clog up everything and make the game all janky. But I mean, just the fact that they are comfortable telling us that it's coming, is pretty insane. Because if they're revealing that, no doubt it's a good thing to reveal for them because it gets a lot of people talking. But that must mean that there's something else as well, right? Like there must be quite a lot of pretty big things coming when these are the ones we're getting revealed, and we're looking all the way into year 6 for some of the things, right? That's kind of insane.
Yeah, that replay system, one of the things that a lot of people were wishing for was an improved anti-cheat, which it wasn't announced. That's a whole different topic, but the replay system is going to absolutely have an effect on closet cheaters. The fact that you can go into a match if you suspect somebody and go and watch the entire match from their perspective is going to bring a lot of them out of the shadows and into the light. I don't know how the reporting system is going to be able to work. Will you be able to report after the match? I don't know how all that's going to work. And I'm not trying to say that this is better than an improved anti-cheat or that they shouldn't still be working on an anti-cheat. I just think that one of the big positives with this is that you're going to be able to go back into a match whenever you're suspecting something and actually probably find the answer to it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a key feature. And content creation.
Yeah.
It's going to open. Yeah, I guess the only thing we didn't see, which would be kind of cool if they could do it, would be a free cam attached to that.
There is a free cam. They said that. They said that's you can watch from your perspective, you can watch from any player's perspective, and you can do the free cam.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Because you can make frag movies then.
Oh yeah. Me with my sick gameplay. Watch out.
All the way back to 2010.
Yeah.
Let's get some machinima in there.
I'll be doing it. I'll be doing it for sure.
You can do that in the new Golden Gun game.
Yeah, that's cool. That's other.
Well, that's called Arcade Playlist.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I understand from that is they're not taking place of events. So, we just had I guess this is the comparison I would make. We had the Money Heist thing that lasted a week or so. That's what I think the arcade playlists are going to be more like. So you're going to get the big event each season, but on top of that, you're going to get the Golden Gun type deal as well. I don't know what the schedule per season is with the arcade playlist and the events, but that's the picture that I got, was that you get an event and an arcade playlist each season, hopefully, fingers crossed. Yeah. But yeah, that's where they just play with the numbers in the game. I saw a post on Twitter earlier. I think it was Roy, your boy Roy, saying one cool thing would be a gun game, where... Yeah. So you start with a pistol and then it levels up as you go on.
Yeah.
Something like that would be cool.
That would be. Yeah, there's a lot they can do with it, absolutely, and that's a good thing.
And the animation, how sweet was that?
It was cool, that reload. That was really cool.
The spinny one.
What about one of the things? I mean, there's just so much, but map bans are coming into ranked. Shout out to the playlist cell out in Barcelona. They're doing great work over there. But how long have people been asking for that? I mean, that's going to it changes everything. They can, in my opinion, they can open up the ranked map pool now if you have the opportunity to ban out maps. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work. I know that the way that they presented it looked like to me like you have 3 maps and you can vote on one of them. And
I think the least banned map is what you play.
Okay, so here's my question though. Those 3 maps, are they grouped together always, or are they random fed in? Because like let's say if they wanted to get like creative with it, in my opinion, you could do something like house, border, coastline. if the people want to vote on house, you can play house. You can play a ranked match on house. But if not, then you can choose between border and coastline, the two more competitively viable maps. You know what I mean?
I would assume they go in and either they have a full random algorithm, so you have map 1, 2, 3, and there's a role being done on each of them, or you have one forced map that isn't being played a lot, and then you have 2 random maps, for example.
Yeah.
Just so there is always the chance of you like picking an. I mean, you can also use it as a test to see how much people like certain maps, right?
Right.
Or how they like. You can use it as feedback to see how they like certain maps against each other for that.
Yeah.
That's really good because they do that with operators already. It's ironic, that's key data there. Just referring to what you said, Flank, I suspect there'll still be the ranked playlist.
Yes.
I think so. I suspect that they'll be picked from the ranked playlist. But it's a good point because they didn't actually say this is like the layout of you're just going to get the choice of those 3 maps. But I would suspect it's a random pick from the maps. From the ranked playlist map pool.
Yeah, potential downside.
I'm just glad that people can be overruled, so we don't end up having people that are only getting to diamond on board.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that was my one issue with a potential map ban is I don't want people to go in and click maps off in a setting.
Right.
I don't believe that's a good thing. Not for competitive, because you're supposed to play on a map against another team, and then we figure out who the best ones are based on who wins. Not just a 5-stack that only plays Clubhouse, right? So now at least you have to choose between 3 different maps, and the least banned one is what you're going to be playing. So you don't ever get a 5-stack never gets a full say on what map is being played. But the at least you can, if you're playing 2 5-stacks against each other, you can both ban one map and then play the third one.
I mean, realistically, you could practice 4 or 5 maps, and probability-wise, you're probably going to get to play them most of the time.
Yeah.
But there'll still be the odd time where you won't get those 4 or 5 maps you're practicing. And there's also the no ban option as well, right? So you can just say, "Oh, I'm happy with all of those." I don't know if you're happy to do it, but I think this segues nicely into what map we're getting next season as well.
Yeah. There's just so much.
Which is the house rework. So we did a map rework episode, didn't we?
Where that was the last episode, wasn't
it?
Yeah.
It was. Yeah, and one of the things I said in that episode is I didn't necessarily want them to touch house because it's so synonymous with Rainbow Six Siege, but I would like a kind of closely quartery type map, though I know that they can be a struggle to make competitive. And it seems as though we're going to get that. Though the one I'm very excited about it, though the one thing that is curious about it is that they have said it's going to be a casual rework.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on that?
That's strange, isn't it? I've never heard that wording before. Does that mean that they don't plan on making it and injecting it into ranked? I don't know. I don't know what that means exactly. But
I think they want to make casual and ranked in like both great places, if that makes sense. Right now, casual just seems like a budget playlist where if you don't want to play ranked or you don't want to like have to struggle every game and you want to just have some fun, well, then you're forced in there, and it's kind of the B tier. It's not as fun. It's not as well done. A lot of the settings could have been better, right? The maps are kind of forgotten. Mm-hmm. We've seen very little change on them. Most of the player base is casual. I don't know if most plays casual, but that doesn't mean that casual shouldn't be receiving some love, right?
Right.
I absolutely agree. I think the one thing there that might not be true so much anymore, well, I think casual is now called quick match, but I think a lot of people that used to play casual or quick match do now play the unranked. And that's not to say that quick match doesn't have a massive player base. It is probably the largest, but I would quite like to see it in unranked. I mean, but I know that they mirror the playlists across the two, because to me, I know I'm being a bit pernickety here, but if it is just in the quick match, I'm probably not going to play it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't play
same,
quick.
but maybe Quick Match could see some more changes. Maybe there didn't need to be operator locks. Maybe you could have more than one of the same operators. Maybe the timing would change. Maybe you could play around with gadgets or something, because it's hard to justify playing Quick Match now unless it's because you just want to be able to leave whenever.
Yeah.
And honestly, I like playing some of the older, arguably shittier maps. I enjoy playing Plane every now and then. I really do. And it sucks if you play ranked only. That I mean, sure, you can go play some unranked if you want to chill a bit, but the unranked match times for me are way worse than ranked and way worse than Quick Match. So I have to be in queue for so long if I need to play unranked to get a lesser ranked experience with nothing on the line. So the only good reason to go there is if I want to slag off a little bit and not play serious, but I still demand the same stuff that I have in ranked. Whereas like quick play or casual and play some plane, play some new house, mess around a bit. I wish they would fool around a bit more with that and maybe change some of the settings even more drastically.
It could. Maybe we'll see that. If there's an element of one of these, arcade playlists that people absolutely love and don't want to live without, maybe we could see that influencing Quick Match in some way or shape. That could be a real possibility. I'm trying to think back to the reworks we were asking for. I know one of the ones that did we both agree on Oregon, or was I the only one that mentioned Oregon? I don't remember exactly.
No, we all talked about Oregon.
Okay,
I think.
So Oregon is the map that got reworked this season. House next, Skyscraper season 3, and then Chalet season 4, which I think most of us mentioned Chalet as well in one way or another. So I think we were pretty close there. I know, Pete, you mentioned Skyscraper. I didn't mention Skyscraper because I said I just want them to burn that map, but it appears that's going to be on the list as well. So the house changes, they actually showed us some screenshots of the house changes, and it looks cool. It looks like it's going to be both the aesthetic aspect as well as some map design reworks. But I'm curious to know what you guys think of Oregon so far. Have you had a chance to mess around with it at all, or?
On the house quickly, can we just appreciate the crowd whenever they see new map things? You show one clip of a room in house and everybody is screaming. Yep. Like it's the best thing that has ever happened. Then they see another picture and everyone's like, yes. Yeah. But
it's like
you have no idea what rework. Yeah, like we don't know how that's gonna be, right? It might be amazing, it might be terrible. Right. But just the fact that all they need is one new picture and then everyone's just lovely and it's
I
great.
think that really plays into the point that I'm glad there's no new maps coming this year. I'll just straight up say it. I'm glad that there are no new maps coming this year. I think there's enough maps in this game. Focus on the ones that are there and make them as good as possible. And then we can start thinking about new maps maybe in year 6. But we don't need any new maps this year.
Yeah, I agree. Like we have a lot of maps that have become kind of stagnant, and I guess if we're looking at Oregon, that is the best example, probably. Right? Basement was a thing that wasn't that bad in year 1, because we still hadn't really figured it out, and there was a few things you could change with it. Then Mirror came in, then Basement became real bad, then Kaid came in, and then Pick and Bans came in, and now in Ranked, if you play your cards right, you win Basement every single time. There is almost no way to deal with any of that, right? It's just kind of it is a map where every round more or less played out the same. And if you did your things right, at least in competitive or in higher rank, if you play your cards right, you know where people are going to be because there's so few options. The flank routes there isn't anything special you can do on Oregon that hasn't been done a million times now. At least on some other maps, we find something every now and then, but it was kind of a shit show to play lately. So I'm really happy they changed it. Yeah, and they changed it a lot, by the way, like a lot.
Yeah, see, I feel that way about a number of maps in there. So just getting back to your point, Flanked, I'm okay with full reworks there's a few reasons for the points that you've both touched on. Also, I mean, there's a consideration there to just constantly adding maps into the game, a game that's growing and giving people so much more to learn. When you've got, think about picking up Siege now. Mm-hmm. So I'm okay with a year of reworks. Yep. You've got all this content in there. Let's make the content in there great. And in many ways, those maps will feel so different and so exciting when they release anyway that they kind of will feel like a new map. I mean, think about Canal. It was so different, or even Clubhouse to a lesser extent. I felt that way about that map when it came out. So I'm absolutely okay with that. That doesn't mean there's not this little bit inside me that's a little bit disappointed that there isn't new maps. But then your brain takes over and says, "Hey, come on,
Yeah, I think it'll be all right.
Yeah, this makes sense.
But it's fun how we look at that, right? Because a reworked map, I'd argue that Oregon is basically a new map, but it's so easy to find your way around, and everything just makes sense in your head real quick. Same with Canal, same with Clubhouse, Cafe. I know they have different, or they use different wording if they are reworking or fixing a map, or updating, whatever it is they call it. Buffing, yeah, sorry. But the reworks and the buffs can be quite substantial to a map where you will still feel like it's the same map. And I think that's a pretty good thing because it takes you much less time to learn it, but it still gives you at least a couple hundred hours of potential learning on a map. Whereas when a new map comes out, I don't believe anyone truly understands a map with less than 100 hours on.
Right.
I just don't believe it. Whenever people say that they've already learned the map, then there's just no way. Because like months in on new maps, even I always start out with jumping in with Buck or the AA-12 and then destroying every single piece of destructible floor and wall. And I still find new things like months later on the same map. So at least if you keep a little bit of the stuff the same, that limits that, but you still get that gratifying learning experience when you play. And you get some new content. It still feels new to play, right?
Yep, it does. You're right.
Yeah, I just think that at the end of the day, like I just think there's a much higher chance of them reworking a map and ending up with a really good map than making a new map from scratch and having that new map be really good. That's not to say that Villa isn't a really good map, but you look at Villa, Fortress, and Outback, the last 3 maps that we've gotten, I think it's fair to say that only one of those have been widely regarded as a good map. Now, like you said, I think the Outback is still
only
developing.
one was forced into Pro League.
What's that?
And only one was forced into Pro League.
That's very true.
That's where it's at.
But the reworks are easier to kind of almost ensure a good product. I'm hearing some whispers that there's some pros out there that want Canal into Pro League, and I do think there is a very good. There should be a map shakeup in Pro League right now. I'm not saying half of them necessarily, but maybe 3 maps change.
There's some out there that want Outback in.
Okay. Throw Canal in, throw the new Oregon in. What about Theme Park? I don't see any reason why Theme Park can't be in there. The reworked Theme Park.
I think Theme Park should take over Border.
Yeah. I would be. I think that from the viewer perspective, I think we need it, man. We do. We need a map shakeup. We really do.
Definitely. Yeah. Seeing Consulate every week, or If they did a shake-up where they put in, say, Canal, Outback, I mean, could you imagine? How exciting it would be as a viewer?
My fear, I think it's a bit early for my fear if they put Outback in now that it'll never get changed. And I think it's just it's a tweak away from being a really good map. And I just want them to make that tweak before they do it. But I don't know. I'd be happy either way. I'm fine with it. I promise. I'm sure that we're going to get into the new operators, Iana and Oryx. But Tachanka rework, dude's got a grenade launcher, it looks like.
Dude, I tell you what they have shown us, he looks so powerful. I mean, this guy is basically launching Goyo shields around. And did you see that LMG just cutting that vaultable hole in about 3 seconds flat?
Correct me if I'm wrong. That LMG's a 2-shot kill, isn't it?
Yeah.
That surely will change, wouldn't you think?
I mean, I despise jumping to conclusion with new operators, but that Chichenka thing, I hope that he's that extreme to get people to talk about him as much as possible and get it hyped. And it looks like Pyro and Minigun Guy from Team Fortress 2 together, like Heavy and Pyro in one. You can yeet your little fire grenades and they bounce, which means now you can sit in vault in bank and you can bounce them off the wall and stop diffusing with that. And once everyone's already on fucking fire, you can walk in there and hip fire your massive LMG.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I mean, there's so many things you can think of. I mean, because of the bouncing, a lot of people are saying the bouncing mechanic will make it harder to use. It's just going to add a skill gap. And once people learn how to master that, okay, think about this. Bank CEO, you have the 2 main reinforced walls. You shoot out the tops of them. You have your bandit charges on them. Throw a Thatcher. That gets rid of the bandit charges. You use one of them. You knock it up over. It lands on the other side. It goes off. You know that thermite cannot be there. A Hibana, sure, but a thermite couldn't be there. And if you have a Hibana ban, I mean, you could do that. It's how many of those rounds does he have? How long does a fire go off? We just saw a little snippet. Like it is tough to jump to conclusions, but my mind's already starting to like think about like how you could deny certain areas, and that could be really cool.
You could put mirror windows up, open the mirror windows, bounce the fire off the edge of the mirror window so it lands outside.
Yes.
There is so much stuff that you can do with this. The thing I'm going to be afraid of is if he is as strong as he is now, I have this gripe with smoke that is really difficult to explain, but I've been hating him since day one pretty much because of how strong he is and how much he brings to a team. He brings some like a guaranteed amount of time, and I know that you can push through the smoke grenades and all of that, but he has such a massive impact. He had a shotgun, he had a good sidearm SMG, thankfully been nerfed and no ACOG on. He had the C4 originally. He had smoke grenades, right? He could basically do almost everything. And I don't ever want an operator like old school smoke because it limits so much creativity on defense because you aren't forced to bring other operators. You aren't forced to make things work together. So I don't want him to be a thing where you can use this LMG to open up half the walls and then you can sit in a corner and throw fire. Out. I mean, we shouldn't be too panicky with the numbers and stuff. I think it showed 12 plus 9 on his grenade launcher or something down in the So it looked like he had a ton of them.
No way.
Or it was
he's
6
legit
going to
be the best defensive operator in the game.
Yeah. Can you imagine a world in which Tachanka has the highest ban rate?
I mean, that would be. We saw him in Pro League.
We did actually
in Invitational.
Dude, that was actually amazing.
I mean, big props for that, and it goddamn worked.
Yeah, it did. That was really cool.
Maybe they should have brought him more.
Yeah, maybe they would have made it to the main stage.
It's the ammo of that grenade launcher and just how powerful the LMG is as an anti-personnel weapon.
And it honestly makes you think, are we going to see some type of fire extinguisher operator? I know it sounds crazy, and I'm sure it won't actually be a fire extinguisher, but it's almost like they reworked fire for the Capital bolts, and they're like, hey, we've got this new toy. Let's use it a lot. And
see, I would use the raycasting, the new shrapnel thing if I was them to start playing around with that.
Like an impact.
Because that could mean that you could say... so you could say that when an explosion happens close to a fire, you intersect the fire gets like crossed with a raycast, and that destroys the fire. Because an explosion puts out fire. So that could be another interesting mechanic. So if you see a Goyo shield and you Sophia it twice, then there's no fire. But if you Sophia it once, well, then the fire will be there until it burns out. Or with a Capital, you could impact at your own feet to stop that, and you'd take the impact damage, but at least you wouldn't burn.
Just thinking aloud here, it's maybe a secondary gadget as we get more and more fire options in the game. Maybe that makes sense rather than having one. Maybe as one operator, it doesn't really make sense. To have a whole ability based around it at this stage, but as a secondary, just some sort of flame retardant or something that stops
probably
it.
Make it a
fire
extinguisher,
well, right?
an actual fire extinguisher that you pull out.
You just want a little firefighter running around going.
And then it creates a smoke cloud, and Warden can see through that smoke cloud. It's a buff to Warden. Everybody wins.
Now Warden becomes useful. Yeah.
200 IQ Warden plays.
I feel like the whole fire thing is. I feel like they were sitting in the office in I assume Montreal, and they were making this fire propagation thing for Capital, and they finally get it to work, and they all look at each other and they go, let's put it on everything. Now Chanka gets it, put it on a shield, put it there.
Yeah.
Make a gun that shoots fire. Let's do it.
Let's make them bounce. Cry.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right about the bounciness of them. That's not actually something. Well, it might make them awkward to use, but actually, it just opens up so many options of use for this particular operator.
I think that's what makes them so strong.
Yeah, like you say about sitting in the mirror spot in Bank and hitting the server wall. Yeah,
but I mean, we've seen the absolute earliest edition, and I mean, we can look at Goyo. Goyo is really, really, really strong. If we look at Invitational, he was played a metric shit ton.
Mm-hmm.
He was played so much. But we had a lot of defenders dying to Goyo shields. A lot. Yeah. We didn't see a lot of Goyo being played where his soft destruction was the intent. So where you place them in, for example, a default plant spot and the attackers have to remove it and then you play from below. So Goyo hasn't evolved yet, like, fully. I assume when Wamai and Kali gets opened up now in Pro League, you're going to see a little bit of Kali. It's not going to be that much. She's kind of a budget Thatcher. Her gun is great when you're in a 1v1 and you don't miss shots. But if there is another player there, you will always lose. You will not get double kills unless you get a collab.
Unless you collab.
Yeah. Which, by all means, man, if anyone's good enough to plan for that, I'm in. But some of these operators that looked insanely broken, because Kali, when she was shown, I remember standing with people when we were watching that reveal, and everyone's jaw just dropped. They were like, "Nope, that'd be way too strong, way too strong. This is dumb. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just sheer panic." Then she comes out, and you know what? She's pretty rare to meet in game.
And I thought exactly the same about Dokkaebi when she was revealed. Yeah, I just thought that looks ridiculous. But then the reality of it.
I think you were right.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Dokkaebi is actually pretty ridiculous. She lost her frags, by the way. Well, I think we've mentioned that on the podcast that we all kind of were like, that was a head scratcher for us that she's been buffed several times in a row. Also, she did receive a buff in sync with it, though. Her DMR can now open a hatch, just like every other DMR can.
Yeah.
So that was a buff to all DMRs.
But it takes a long time.
Yeah. It's still nice. I mean, it's a nice feature.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so they could open hatches before. It's just now you have enough ammo to actually do it.
Right. It opens in like 5 or 6 shots. I think is what people are saying is that you can get it.
Same as a barricade.
Yeah.
So a barricade took 20 bullets to destroy with every gun. Now I think it takes 6 or 7 shots to destroy a barricade with a DMR instead of 20, because that was a big problem. You could never destroy a barricade without having to reload.
Right.
So if you're Blackbeard or I don't know, Lion with the 417, you would you don't open barricades. You just don't.
Yeah.
But now you can kind of justify it because it's a lot quicker.
You know, speaking of broken operators, Iana and Oryx, there's something. What do you guys think?
Okay. Shall I go first?
Go ahead.
Or?
Yes. I need to think.
Okay. My first thought when I got to play them about a week ago, and very first initial thoughts was, okay, low barrier to entry to actually understanding and utilizing them. You said you had Epi give your presentation, and he was talking about content for all of the community. Yeah. Something I like about these two new operators is whilst they will obviously work best in tandem playing with a team, actually your average player is going to quickly understand and be able to utilize them, even if they're not utilizing them to full effect. So if we're talking about someone like Callie, she's a difficult operator to use. You talk about operators just, by virtue of the fact that she's running around with a sniper rifle. You talk about an operator like Valkyrie. A lot of people that don't have the map knowledge, the 200 hours that Zyronic talked about, are often worried about picking an operator like Valkyrie because they don't know if they're putting the cameras in the right place. So actually, they just avoid. But these two new operators, I think, for the average or below average player like myself, can just immediately understand, right, okay, we've got a guy that can go up hatches. I understand now that I can rear flank people. Oh, right, we've got an operator that can just stand still somewhere safe and I can release a hologram of me and run in and get a good look. Now, obviously, there's a lot more to it playing, if you're a diamond level player, but I like that aspect of these two operators where actually you're going to be able to use them at all levels. I actually feel that both of them have the potential to be very good operators. Obviously, time will tell. It's always quite difficult when two new operators are revealed to, immediately assess their impact. But I can kind of see the new attacker not being an entry fragger, but accompanying one. Because, like this whole concept of refragging.
Yeah.
It's sort of like you're refragging off a hologram. Yeah. Do you get what I'm saying? Absolutely. So you've lost a hologram, but they've actually lost an operator. Mm-hmm. So you could see an Ash following the hologram in, a couple of seconds behind and picking up that intel, then taking out the defender. And then with regards to the new defender, what's he called?
Oryx.
Oryx? Yeah. Yes. So when Amaru was revealed, I was mildly disappointed that it wasn't a defender that could go up hatches, because I think about 2 years ago, I talked about how I'd like to see this operator in the game. And I think it was at a time when I was watching like Pro League Consulate with Skies and Laxin playing on Consulate and just like rotating round as these two roamers. And I was thinking, God, how cool would it be if you could go up hatches and surprise people? So I really like both of these new operators, more so than a season in the longest time. I feel I will actually use both of these. An interesting thing to tell you about the defender, I did some really quick testing because obviously with capture sessions, you only get a few hours. And obviously everyone's there to capture content with the new operators. But sometimes towards the end, you get like a 20-minute window to test them out. And one thing, I was just testing him coming through hatches and what the counters were. So with the Nomad air jab, you know how he can hang from a hatch and look around, whack-a-mole style, before you hit him? So with the Nomad air jab, it doesn't affect him. He has to climb through before it affects him. But the Claymore, the second he gets there, he's dead.
Interesting.
So that's the actual hard counter to him. But no,
it's gonna be a jump scare.
Yeah. It's, I like these two new operators, I must say. Weird though, he doesn't have a gadget, right, Zyronic? He's just a brute force.
He's just in shape.
Yeah, he's properly.
He didn't skip leg.
I don't know if you've noticed on the back, he has like a little camel bag where it says R on. I'm pretty sure it's roids. I'm pretty sure it's full
He's
of that.
He's done a few pull-ups in his time, that's for sure.
Horse testosterone straight in. Iana seems like a budget Twitch. So you get to use the hologram. It's a glorified drone. It relies on the enemy team making a big mistake, right? They might see forward, they might see it on cam and do something drastic that they shouldn't have. But one bullet and it's gone. You can't really hide it anywhere. No one else can utilize it. It's just you. The vision is only you. Her guns aren't super impressive. They're not amazing. They're not bad. The ARX is great, but it's 20 bullets, and you basically have to reload after every fight. G36, fine gun, nothing special, but she brings very, very little to the team. If it wasn't for her having nades, I wouldn't even consider her. She's fun to play, which is super important. But in almost every case, I'd rather bring a Twitch. Because that way, the same things that I see, I can at least destroy or remove. Seeing as Iana doesn't trigger any traps and still gets messed up by touching a battery or a mute jammer or hit once with a Maestro Cam, right? It doesn't do a lot. I tested yesterday and were able to like fake plant with her, which that was great. Like I got people to just yeet C4s at me all day, which immensely strong, but that will not work for long.
How did you do that? Did you just crouch?
Just run in, crouch, look down on the floor, and sit still.
That's great.
And I just hope they mess up, right? I get people to throw smoke grenades at me and stuff like that, but it's kind of the alibi tricking. Alibi tricking works against little lower skill, but at higher level, there's no point in ever trying because I'm shooting every alibi I see, no matter what, because you don't have a choice, right? I can't gamble if it's a player or not. So you end up using her more as a warning system than anything else, putting her in front as like an obfuscation of looking into a room, and then you can peek on the sides of it and get a real-time ping or use it to see for other people, whatever. Oryx, though, I think his two strongest things is that he can jump through a hatch. That's really big, but he brings no utility. And then the fact that he can absolutely destroy Montaigne.
Yeah.
If you know a team is bringing Montaigne, you just bring Oryx.
Yeah.
And you sit on site and you just wait. And when Monty Boy comes, you just throw him so far back into the other room that he's reconsidering ever playing Monty again, right? He's amazing at that. But there's like a lot of things have to line up for you to truly get the value out of Oryx. It's great that you can jump through a hatch, but it's only you.
Right.
So you need to get some actual value out of that, right? Like let's say you're playing Bank and you make it up to open an area hatch and you bypass the Claymore and the stairs and the air jabs, the people covering it. And now you can play the after plant from above instead. That would be a pretty big thing. But you have very little value until then. The MP5, decent gun, but it's not like a killing machine, right? Especially when you don't have a ACOG on it. Spas 12, yeah, it's all right, but you're probably gonna play him with the Bailiff and the MP5. Mm-hmm. I think he's fun to play, but I think he's hard. It's difficult to justify him in a setup. The fact that he can run through walls doesn't mean anything, in my opinion. It's 10 HP. It's 10 damage every time you do it.
You don't see him and Doc. That's what people are saying. Him and Doc.
I mean, bring a shotgun.
Yeah.
Why not? You want to use a stim pistol? Have him open up all these walls? Great, but if people really wanted to open that much, they just bring. You can bring Castle and Mossy now, and you have two super shotties, and it costs you nothing. And I don't want to waste a stim on that. I could waste that stim on someone bandit tricking, right? So they can't get grenaded. Or overheal so someone can run past the Claymore.
Or a spawn peak.
Or a spawn peak, yeah. I don't know. I find it hard to justify him in a 5-man setup where I want intel, I want some soft destruction, preferably for a shotgun, whatever, to open hatches. He does bring the Bailiff, so that's something. But the fact that he can run through walls, you're basically Echo Drone when you do it. So it's not that good to use in combat. You'd be better off using an impact nade. Then you can shoot right away. And you can do it from distance. Because he's committed, right? Like once you make a hole,
and he's like stunned,
you got both hands
too.
in your pocket.
There's like a visual impairment and stuff. Yeah.
It's exactly like getting Echo Drone. Like your entire screen's just shaking and it takes a while to pull your gun out. It's like ammo-ruing, I guess.
Yeah.
When you go up a hatch, right?
Yeah.
You can't do much when that happens. And it's loud. It's really loud. At least with an impact nade, it could have been something, right? But with him, you know what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, he's left quite vulnerable as well. It takes a moment, right, to get your weapon back up when you do the ball charge or whatever it's called. So the one thing that I immediately thought, and we were testing this out, I was sat there with grief drums and my friend Rich during the capture session, and the thing that we immediately tried was knocking someone down, then immediately spam the melee, and it does work. You don't even need to wait for your weapons to come back up. So if you knock down a Montaigne, you need to be smacking the melee button on your keyboard, and you'll see, like I've got a kill cam of it. You see, you just immediately, not immediately, but very quickly swipe them and take them out. So that's the play with him, I think, if you do knock someone over.
I echo a lot of the same things that you guys mentioned. So I'll just try and think of, as far as my thoughts on the new operator, some things that in addition, as far as Iana, how about this? I haven't heard anybody mention this yet, but I think this is true, and I think this is needed. Iana is a counter to Mozzie. Because a Mozzie, a mute jammer will stop her hologram, but a Mozzie pest will not. So if you need to get information behind a doorway that a Mozzie pest is denying, and you don't have an EMP or any other way of getting rid of it, you could send a hologram in and get that information that a drone normally would, and not have to worry about that pest. So that's one kind of cool thing, because Mozzie is in the meta right now. The mute Mozzie combo, that's strong right now. So that's kind of one thing that I've thought of. I just think with Iana, it's all like, if you are using her hologram by yourself, it's really no different than a drone. And in fact, in some ways could be weaker than a drone. At least a drone, you can leave it sit on a cupboard and it can stay there for the entire round, and your teammates can spectate it. And in a lot of ways, you'd rather have a drone. However, when you are using it in combination with another player and working together, you think about you send your hologram in, you've got the Ash coming right behind it. That Ash is going to not only get the call out from you saying where the enemy is, they're going to get an audible call out from when the enemy shoots the hologram as well. Not only that, but you would think that the person, if they're not smart, at least at this phase, what I'm seeing a lot, because it's happened already, person shoots the hologram and then instantly reloads. And then your Ash is now getting into a gunfight with a person who's in reload animation. That won't happen for long. And that shouldn't happen with good players right now, but it is happening right now. I've seen it a couple times. So the other thing I'll mention with Iana is that she is allowed to get information in a part of the round where sometimes you don't have drones. Like, say the last 30 seconds of a round on an attack, you're getting ready to enter a thermite hole. A lot of times in that situation, you've already used your drones. Maybe one's on the other side of the map, the other one got shot. Now with her, you pull out the hologram, you get information that's really valuable, really quick. I think that could be really strong. Information in this game is one of those things that just like keeps getting stronger and stronger. So I do think that she seems a little boring to play. It almost just feels like her hologram should do something else, but I understand why it doesn't. Mm-hmm. I think that she's not going to be boring to play because you're going to see success off of her, but it's not like I activate my gadget and this cool thing happens. It's like I activate my gadget and I help out a teammate. And, that's a little bit different.
That might come down the road, though.
Yeah.
If in 6 to 12 months, if her pick rate or presence is very low, there is if she really is dire, then they could add the ping.
Yeah, if they add the ping 2.0, that would change her dramatically. As far as Oryx, not really anything to add. I think that Oryx is amazing. I just think that the big thing that screams at me with Oryx is that attackers now have to worry about defenders coming from areas that they never had to before. And I think that is really cool. Like if you think about taking top floor on admin, well, you don't even have to think top floor. Let's say consulate. If you're defending garage, attackers take control of the top 2 floors. You air jab out Visa stairs, you air jab out spiral stairs, and then you have control of yellow stairs. You pretty much know at that point defenders are not coming upstairs. Not anymore. You've got the Oryx in servers. He opens one of the hatches. He comes up into, I guess it would be Visa there, and then comes around that way. That changes a lot. It really does. And I'm really excited to see, as somebody whose name is Get Flanked, Oryx kind of, I relate.
The thing with new operators is, if you look from like, does it make me win more or win less? then it becomes a whole different thing to look at, because what would you replace Oryx with, right? Or Iana, like the Twitch comparison, for example. Most times you would be better off having a Twitch. With Oryx, well, most times maybe a Vigil would actually waste more time, because you still have the impact nades. You can still do quite a lot of flanking. There's actually quite a lot of operators that would fit very well into that role. Even if you were roaming with a Mossy or a Mute, then you have your C4, you have your Super Shoddy. Damn, you could roam with Castle now. Save one Castle barricade, use the Super Shoddy for the hatches. And sure, you can't get on that flank with anyone else, but you take so much else away from your team by doing it, that if that hatch play doesn't work, if you don't get something out of it, then almost every other operator pick would have been stronger. And I mean, that's a good thing. It's a good thing that you have to, these operators that don't have an actual utility or some sort of a real secondary gadget, that you have to make a play for them to be worth it. The same goes with Cav, right? Cav's biggest strength isn't really the interrogation. It's that fear you bring to everyone by them potentially being interrogated if they're alone. That's worth way more than the interrogation itself. You see a Cav and everyone just cuts whatever they're doing and start focusing on that instead.
I just back out of the game. I just leave.
Is there
I just leave.
is there not an element of that with the new operator though?
Yeah.
That fear, that
exactly.
changing of the attacking play style to accommodate him.
But that's what I mean is like big strength is, because I mean, let's say a normal defending lineup, if you want to run like by a 2x2 thing where you have 2 intel and then two anchors and then one person that can roam or rotate a little bit. So like if you got a Valk and an Echo or maybe a smoke in there somewhere, you need that shotgun from one of the operators to get some of the stuff set up. You do need some sort of intel, so it's Echo, Maestro, or a Valk. Then you need another person that is situated on site no matter what, right? Because most of the time you'll need one on A and B and then one that like moves in between, and then you can have 1 or 2 people roaming, or you can do with like a 3-man roam. But you start being very, very limited to what you can bring, because if there's some specific spots you want to play in, well, now you also need Jaeger or you need Doc, because you need to be able to either survive the onslaught of frag grenades and stuff, or you need to be able to overstim when it's about to happen. You need some C4s. You probably need impact nades to impact trick. You might need some denial in terms of either mute, Kaid, or bandit. So now you're very, very limited if you want to do like the meta stuff and make sure that they enter from a certain place. Then you can argue that maybe doing all of that isn't actually the way. Maybe you need to think about everything completely different. But it's how most people play right now. Sure. And it's how, like, the easiest effective thing is to do that. And if you do throw Oryx in there, or if you do throw Iana into the attacking lineup, you take a lot away. Because something like a Hibana, let's say Hibana, Thermite, Sophia, Buck, Thatcher, you can get pretty much everything done. The only thing you're missing there is smoke grenades. And we don't even see them used that much anymore. Yeah. And that could be swapped with either one of the heart breachers, or you can swap that with your Thatcher, and then remove stuff from below instead. You could have an IQ instead. But it's very few operators that you see actually change in that lineup, right? Like if we go in and look, I don't know when they're gonna drop the info on all the operators played at SI. But I'll promise you there is like 2 or 3 attacking lineups that are doing basically 80% of the games. And when I say 2 or 3, it's like the same lineup but with 1 or 2 operators changed, right? So if you want to get the most out of it, you're very, very limited to what you can do. You almost only have 1 flex roll, maybe 2 in a setup on most maps. But at some point when we get enough operators, I don't think we're even remotely close to that yet. I think maybe when we're at like 80 operators, then you have enough that there is so much crossover that there's no way for you to predict or expect a certain set of operators. It's going to be good with that heart change with the secondary.
Yeah.
That now you don't instantly just assume that at least one of them is going to be a thermite droning for 2 minutes and then opening the wall and then the execute's coming.
Right.
Because things become very, very predictable. And you can almost, like, you can see one operator sometimes and you know exactly what the rest of the operators are just by what they have to be.
You know, one thing that...
But yeah,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was good. The more operators we get, the less of a problem that becomes.
One thing we haven't really talked about, you mentioned operator selection at the Six Invitational is just, I mean, the Six Invitational that we were just at. I mean, I had a pretty incredible experience. Just, you know, my thoughts as far as attending the event. It was at the same venue as last year, but everything just seemed better. The stage was 100 times better. Everything was better. I mean, every year the Invitational has gotten better, and this year was no different. I thought the production was amazing. I thought all the talent, including you, absolutely killed it. There wasn't a single weak link. I was really happy with viewership. To me, the viewership was much more solid throughout. That was the big improvement I saw this year. We didn't hit like a giant spike that was, you know, astronomically higher than any previous year. But like when you started watching the group stages and seeing 60, 70K watching the group stages, that was something that I hadn't seen before. So I was happy with that. And overall, it was just an amazing experience. Obviously, you know, meeting people, anybody who's watching this that came up and said hi, you know, thank you. I really enjoyed meeting everybody and, you know, seeing fellow creators and everything. It was just if you love Rainbow Six Siege, go to the Six Invitational. Just do it. There's not a single person that went that isn't planning on coming back last year. And I think that's really all you need to say.
I could echo, what you've said. And obviously there was that esports reveal as well too. So there's going to be majors coming around. There's going to be a major in Europe this year. So if you live in Europe and you can't afford to get all the way to Montreal, though I'd recommend you do go, but there will be a big major in Europe. There's one coming to the APAC region, NA. There's going to be loads more majors. There's going to be seasonal finals in Sao Paulo as well. I actually thought just getting back to this year's Six Invitational, I thought within the venue, the audience, the people there were way more sort of vociferous in their support of their teams than I saw last year, particularly as we got to the semi-finals. Which was really interesting. It was like being at a football match or something with all the chanting.
It was.
Not that hasn't happened in the past, but the degree to which it happened, the atmosphere really was something else to any of the Rainbow Six Siege esports events I've been to in the past. I'd like to pick up on before I do that, just one quick point. Anyone that bumped into me and gave me words of encouragement about the podcast, I really appreciated it. And, you know, if I'm fortunate enough to go to these events in the future and you do see me about, do come and say hello and buy me a beer. You know, that never goes amiss. But, that was really cool. So anyone that did come up and have a chat, I really appreciate you. So thanks for doing that. And I appreciate all the words of encouragement. But I wanted to put an idea to you two as well about, I think I said to you, Flanked, while we sat there watching the final, but I haven't said this as ironic. So, I'll see what he thinks of it. You might think it's rubbish, but one of the things is there's always a peak in viewership. You have a peak around the Creators Cup. You have a peak around the reveal, the really big peak, right? Because whilst the esports is growing, which is a great thing, there is obviously a percentage of people that do just want the reveal and then they sort of tune out. So one thing I was thinking might be cool is to have the reveal before the final, have the final, and then have a halftime intermission. Now, that happens in other esports like CSGO and stuff like that. So that is out there. And we already have a 15-minute break. But I'm sort of talking a 40-minute break. So it's like a tactical intermission. The teams can gather, you know, talk about what the first two maps, what went on, and then have another reveal in that period of time. So, for example, this year there was so much information. So you could have, say, 70% of that at the start, then more information in the middle, maybe that's a Tachanka rework, something like that. and then maybe even something, a little snippet of something at the end, like the Tomb Raider Elite skin, that tie over. So in a way, it's a bit sneaky what I'm suggesting. I fully admit that, because I'm saying, like, split up the reveal, have a big part of the reveal at the beginning, a sizable amount in the middle, 40 minutes of discussion with the dev panel, and then a little thing at the end just to keep people interested, like an Elite skin. What do you think of that?
I don't think that's a bad idea, but I think it's a solution to something that isn't a problem. So there's nothing wrong with like baiting people in with the reveal. I actually think that's kind of a good thing. But I think we're already doing that. So to my understanding, I'm not sure if my numbers are correct, but every record was broken this year except for peak viewership. Through group stages, we actually had more people watching the matches there than we had up until the second last day at last Invitational. Just in groups, we broke everything. I think peak viewership for finals was like 316K or 10K or something, and the year before it was 318.
There wasn't a lot in it, was there?
Little higher on last year's peak, and I think a little higher again on the year before that. I think 2018 was the highest we've had, then 19, and then 20. But the peak viewership was actually during the final.
It wasn't during the reveal, just before.
No, it wasn't.
I don't believe so.
It wasn't.
And I don't believe it. I don't believe it was last year or the year before either. But it does give a boost in viewers. I just think that the people that come in to see the reveal are more likely to stick around for the finals if they're actually interested in it.
Yeah.
Whereas the people who are only interested in the reveal, I don't think they would spread out their time long enough to actually, like, if you don't enjoy the esport, you're not going to be there.
But it's about conversion as well. It's about conversion.
I completely agree
too.
But I think you convert more by having the ones that see the reveal and think, oh, you know what, I'll maybe give this a try, than by like limiting it into sections of when they can watch it. Because I know if it was me, not that I'm everyone, far from, but if it was me, I would just wait until it was over and then go watch my favorite YouTuber have a condensed version of all of it, and then just say kind of meh to the whole live reveal. Because if they want to feed it in sections for me like that, it's too much time. If I have to wait, an hour and a half to get my next snippet, like that's how I watch E3. I only watch the small snippets of the game that I care about. I don't watch any of the stuff in between. And I think if they do that, then they won't get as big of a boost in the start, because the longer the panel is to start with, the more that boost builds up. And especially on something like Twitch, being number one means more than anything, right? Because if you're the first, well, then more stuff happens there. And I know there was front page time as well for this event.
Cool.
So Siege had some actual front page on Twitch, right? Which also means it's on.
Yeah.
And if we're being seen on the front page either just before the finals or during a reveal or something like that, like that's a really good way of bringing in tons of viewers. I don't understand why we had less peak viewers this event. I'm not sure what can cause it, because we had a higher average viewer count.
I don't know either. But one theory that I would have, the org that brings the most viewership in Rainbow Six Siege is G2. And obviously they never made the main stage. So that's one thing I'll throw at you. The other thing I'll say is that peak player count is usually about 9 a.m. in the morning East Coast time. So it could be that because it was on East Coast time in the evening, maybe we were excluding a large portion of the European audience that wasn't awake that late or didn't stay up for it, or even more than the European audience would be the Asian audience. So those are two things that I would kind of throw out. It doesn't explain it, because I believe that the peak happened at roughly the same time. But I mean, I think the game maybe is growing overseas more or faster than what it is here. I don't know. This is two things I'll throw out there. I don't think that's a bad idea, Pete. I think there's something to be said for a halftime. I wonder what the players would think of that. How would the players enjoy a 40-minute break after map 2? That's one. I don't know.
I mean,
I think
look
it's
at
gonna be
NI.
rough.
Yeah, maybe it would be rough. Maybe it would be rough on them. I know it does happen in other esports, but yeah, maybe it would, or maybe I don't know. NIP would have liked a break.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a crazy final
Maybe.
match. And by the way, congratulations to Space Station Gaming for being world champions. Yeah, that's awesome. They
That is
didn't lose
awesome.
a single match, and they
Oh.
played like the best team in the world. I mean, you can't really. There's
Except for the first two maps.
yeah. That was definitely shaky.
And
Clubhouse.
3 rounds of the
Why
third map.
was Clubhouse
Yeah.
even let in? Is my question. Like, I've got to look at Nip and say if they ban that map, because they went down 0-4 on Clubhouse. The only reason, in my opinion, that Space Station won was because they were so good at defense on Clubhouse that as bad as they were playing in the first two maps, the fact that they're down 0-4, how good they are on Clubhouse overcame that. And if that map had been banned out, I don't think that Space Station wins that personally.
I think from Nib's point of view, you're not that worried about playing it as the third map because you have to win the first two either way.
Right.
So that kind of helps. And I mean, if they win those first two, most teams, it doesn't matter how damn good you are. If you're down like that, it's really difficult to come back,
Yeah.
right? And Nib's not bad on Clubhouse. I'm pretty sure that like that's out there now, right? Like people saw them play there. SSG won because their defense turned the whole thing around, and they had two clutches that should never have happened. Rampy's impact nade clutch on Jim. So I think if I remember correctly, at around 12 seconds he gets spotted. He runs into Jim and he starts planning. He knows he's spotted. He knows he's in there. He could have planted other places. They could have had someone instantly drop through the hatch. There's so much stuff that could have happened for that round not to go that way. Rampy could just not have had an impact nade, and it might have gone different. On Bank, there was Troy's 1v2 clutch. They had so many of these like small clutches that should never have happened from Nip. It kind of breaks you, right? Because rounds where you're basically beating the other team, one player goes nope, and then you lose anyway.
Yeah.
And that's got to be a bit of a bummer. But it took them until round 4. Actually, it took them until round 6 to wake up on Clubhouse. And then they came back, and then it kept rolling from there into last map, and then map advantage helps in that one.
Can I make the case for that? Because there's a lot of debate right now that one map advantage shouldn't be given. Okay, so the way that it works in Call of Duty, at least when you have a losers bracket, is that whoever comes out of the losers bracket has to beat the person who came out of the winners bracket in 2 best of 3s. 2 best of 3s or 2 best of 5s. I don't. Anyway, they have to beat them in 2 separate. Okay, and that makes sense because the one team is true double elimination. One team hasn't lost yet, so they still deserve to be able to have one loss and keep playing. It does make sense. I would almost argue that being up one map in a best of 5, a single best of 5, in some ways is stronger though. And I know that sounds weird, but honestly think about it. Instead of having to be, okay, let's say that you have 2 teams that are really, really, really close together. Okay, one team's maybe like a fraction better than the other time. If they play 2 best of 3s, it's very likely that could go 1-1 or something, like that. But in a best of 5, I feel like if you start a best of 5 with a 1 map advantage, 2 equal teams, that best of 5 is going to go to that the team with the 1 map advantage every single time. But in 2 separate best of 3s, that's not necessarily the case. I don't know. It just seems like to me in a best of 5, when you start with a 1 map advantage, you have to be, if you're the team that doesn't start with that advantage, you have to be the significantly better team once. Whereas in 2 best of 3s, you have to be the slightly better team twice. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, but it's super, super difficult because there's so many factors with that. First off, you have to justify losers bracket to start with at all. you have to justify why one team can have lost and still get a chance to beat the team that never lost and win.
Can I say something real quick on
the
that?
finals.
In my opinion, and I haven't heard from any players, and I would love to. I mean, if you're a player watching this, reply to Twitter or whatever. In my opinion, I felt like the fact that there was a losers bracket increased the level of play throughout the entire tournament, because players knew that if I lose this, it's not over. I still have another chance. And that made them play a little bit more free, and I think we saw a higher level of siege because of that.
It definitely makes for a much better player experience, much better viewer experience, because you get to chance things. You can try out stuff. If you lose, it's not end all be all. I mean, it is in the last one, but that's not so much it. It's in the finals. You have to justify how much of an advantage should it be, because there needs to be a massive advantage to being in the main one, right? Like in upper bracket, because otherwise if you are truly the best team, you'd rather be in lower bracket if there isn't a massive advantage, because that means you don't have to play as hard, you don't have to show as much, and then you can use all the tricks when you get to the end, right? In theory, I don't think anyone is going to be hardcore enough to on purpose drop the lower bracket and then ease their way through there and
hiding strats.
I mean, why not? they bring Tachenko, right? But there's a lot of different views on that. I've heard people talk about having double bans, so the upper bracket gets both bans, or the upper bracket gets all picks, so they pick the entire like the numbers, or the what do you call it, the order that all the maps will be played in after bans, or give them first ban and double pick. So there's so many things you can do.
What if the orders? What if the winners bracket the winners bracket team gets old Blackbeard and old Ella? 800 HP Blackbeard.
Why not? They get to choose the patch they play.
Right, there we go.
There you go. No, I don't know, man. I have a problem with seeding to start with when it comes to events like these. I think everything should start from scratch at a major. I think all teams should be seen as equal once qualified. But that's just my little gripe with that. But I want to make sure that the team who is in the upper bracket get enough of an advantage that they can never ever consider that they should have had more of an advantage. Right? Like, I think that's the most important thing. Because the team that didn't win is always going to have an idea of how things could have been better, so then maybe they won.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think best of 7 instead. But I mean, when do we stop?
Right.
Best of 12, right? Like, how far do we go?
Yeah.
Like a best of 7 with a one map advantage and double ban. That's a pretty big deal. But also, your ban is like, you get the decider. You get the last map. So it's like having an extra ban, right?
So long as you run the system of a losers bracket, I think you will always have these questions after the fact.
Yeah.
I mean, they all went in there with their eyes open to what the situation is. SSG won it. Fair enough. That's what it is. And I know you two are in favour of it, but I don't think I'm actually in favour of the losers bracket thing. And I completely understand your arguments about freeing the teams up and seeing different things that perhaps you wouldn't otherwise have. The thing is, from my point of view, let's go with your idea of not seeding the teams. Okay, that's cool. So let's just have 4 groups. Each play within A, B, C, and D. That's your 4 groups. Every team in each group plays each other once. Top 2 go through. No losers bracket. After that point, you're guaranteed. You go to the Invitational, you're getting 3 games. You're going to play everyone in Group A. Cool. That's 3 games guaranteed. So it's not a wasted journey, as we've seen other tournaments in the past where you don't play a lot. Okay. Once you go through, it's knockouts. This is it now. This is the big boys league. It's knockouts. And as we go through, we get to the finalists and we have 2 finals. Now, I get what you're saying about the losers bracket. I think it does make things interesting in a way, but you'll always get these questions at the end.
Yeah.
Whereas if
I'm not a fan of losers bracket either.
Yeah.
I prefer the MMA style of I mean, you might get knocked out 20 seconds in, man.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, but
It might happen.
you gotta admit that nip run through the losers bracket was magical. That
Yeah,
it
that
was.
was
Like I
amazing.
totally agree with you. There was some interesting stories there. TSM at a point, wasn't there? There was some interesting things developing. It was really interesting. I'll never take that away from it. But I think on balance of things, from a competitive standpoint, I probably would like the traditional system that we see in, say, sports, say at the World Cup, that kind of thing. If you're familiar with it, where you have your groups. I think at the World Cup there's 8 groups of 4 teams, and then it's the top 2 teams from each group go through. Now, you don't have seeding, okay, but let's say if you win Group A, you play second in Group B. You win Group B, you play second in Group A. That's perhaps where the seeding could come into it, where it's just like a little reward for winning your group. Oh, you won Group D? Cool, you play second in Group C. And that's the only point where I might use seeding, just so then you might have the best teams making their way towards the semi-finals.
I just kind of like the idea of the added value in not having the losers bracket. All of these good matches you have become a little bit more intense when you know that if Team A loses, Team A is gone.
Yeah.
No more playing. Big fan of your group setting. Big fan of removing seeding. I don't mind losers bracket. I'm not against it. I just it gives a certain amount of leeway and relaxation, even to the viewer. And it would be weird to see a team getting into loser bracket, then have an easy run through the losers bracket, get into the finals, and then like 3-0.
Yeah.
If NiP actually 3-0'd in that event, that would have left a weird
It would
taste. Whereas if they just got 2 maps and then lost one and then won the last one, great, fine match, impressive, you know. But all the way through losers bracket, and then you can come with a whole redemption story, and the people stepped up and they just had one bad game. But if the second we start speculating into the one bad game, then you take so much away from people to win.
Yeah.
Right? Then it becomes the same thing where the boxer who got knocked out early on says, yeah, but if he didn't hit me with that lucky shot, yeah, but well, he did.
Well, I'll tell you what could have been even worse
saying.
than that, Zeronic, is
SSG winning 2.
Yeah, 2-0.
Oh, no.
2-0.
I was going to say that if TSM beats NiP and then comes back into the finals, and then TSM beats Space Station after Space Station already beat them twice in this tournament.
Yeah.
They lose to them the third time, and they lose the finals because of it. That could have been a disaster, in my opinion.
That would actually have been a really, really good show of exactly why losers bracket can be a bad thing.
Yeah.
If that happened.
Yeah, I'm glad.
And it could have
as an
happened.
NA fan, I love the guys on TSM, but I'm glad it wasn't a TSM SSG final. It would have been the third time they played. That would have taken something away from it, in my opinion.
I just dislike it because it's 2 from the same region.
Yeah, no, I was
like, you don't have the 2. So the beautiful thing for people that didn't see at the event was that you had people chanting Vamos NiP,
Yeah.
and then in the space between that, people dropped SSG.
Yeah, it was cool.
So it literally bounced from one end of the room to the other between NiP and SSG, and it was goddamn beautiful.
It really was.
There wouldn't have been the same power in that game if it was 2 NA teams. You also don't have that suspense of, is it going to be NA or LATAM that takes it? Right? You're instantly guaranteed, well, it's going to be an NA champ anyway, so now we just cheer for whatever team we like the most. But having regions against each other in the finals is always the best.
Yep.
That's cool. Yeah, it is cool.
Well, I guess my final thought really is regarding the Invitational is just that it was great. From a spectator experience, I'm really glad that NA finally has a trophy back. I'm really glad that NA showed up. I think you could make the argument that NA had 3 of at least the top 6, but 3 of the top 4 teams at the tournament could have been from NA. I mean, you can make the argument that Dark Zero technically belong top 4 because they beat BDS. BDS made it further than them, but anyway, regardless,
Not really, but
NA showed up. NA showed up, and it was a really good tournament. I want G2 to get. I want something. I want them to come back strong. I'm not sure what happened with Empire there, but either way, I
mean, it's not just G2 that needs to come back. If I think we've been hard on NA, rightfully so. For anyone that is losing their marbles and getting all upset now, NA didn't put in enough effort for a very long time, and the way that things were done didn't work. Clearly, they do now, right? EU seems to have been slacking a lot, and you could see that with the way that teams handled it. I mean, we had teams leaving very, very early after getting knocked out.
Took out 2 EU teams.
Yeah, and in style. So in goddamn style. Performance just wasn't there, like attitude, whatever you want to call it. The teams didn't play the way they should, and they didn't live up to expectation. And I think it's fair to call them out because their job is to...
They're professionals.
I mean,
it's absolutely fair.
Yeah, and they 100% know as well, right? Having talked to them, they know. Yeah. They don't feel good about it. Fans are always gonna protect them, and that's fine. The players themselves know exactly where things slipped up, and that they maybe need to take it as serious as they did when they started with it. Because that amount of sloppiness and slacking that came from EU at this event, and that's not even taking anything away because NA played like absolute madmen, and so did a lot of Latin teams and Fnatic for that matter. But they're not delivering what they should be. So just for viewers' perspective and for the enjoyment of the game, I really hope they wake up so we can have a proper clash next time. And learn to, I don't know, it's not that difficult getting up there. It's really difficult to stay up there. And I think that's what teams forgot. They think they can just cruise once they've done well. And yeah, that's not happening.
Yep, I fully agree. And we talked about that on this podcast in the past, haven't we? That's what's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, we did.
Do you guys want to wrap it up here? Do you feel like it's a good?
I'm happy to.
Yeah,
I think we hit most of the major things. Again, if you guys are anybody watching this, if there's something that we missed that was revealed that you really want us to talk about, put it in the comments. Maybe we'll pick up on it on the next episode. I think we all just kind of agreed that we just wanted to kind of go in this with an open mind, not really have a firm agenda, and just talk about what stuck out to each of us over this past weekend that has so much good stuff revealed, and it's quite a time to be a Rainbow Six Siege player. I think that's probably the number one takeaway. So with that said, anything else you guys want to say?
No, we've left some wriggle room for next week. There's still some stuff we can talk about here next week. So if like you say, if we've missed some of the bits and pieces you wanted us to talk about, leave it in the comments section. But we can also, pick up on a lot of this stuff next week, including some of the esports bits and pieces.
Sure.
I just want to echo what you said earlier with the reception for the podcast has been really, really good. I know there's a lot of devs out there listening, and I think I speak on behalf of all of us that we're pretty grateful that you give a shit. That means a lot. And there was a lot of people at Invitational that came up and said they've been listening to it, and seeing that people care about that is that matters a lot. So thanks for making this work.
Yeah, and we're always looking to improve, and we've got little things that we're discussing behind the scenes that are coming. So we appreciate all your feedback. Yeah.
Little things.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Don't forget, obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can also listen to the audio only version on your favorite podcasting app. Don't forget to check out the patch notes. They're listed down in the description, as well as the devlog for Explosion will be down there as soon as that is live. And with that said, we're going to sign off. We'll see you guys on the next episode.